Hello everyone and welcome to Hollow Knight, a game created by the wonderfully Australian Team Cherry. Do cherries actually grow in Australia, by the way? That's not even like a joke or anything, I'm just genuinely curious. But anyway, Hollow Knight is a very somber, rather dark, and really, truly interesting action-adventure, or really Metroidvania style game that can really only come from some very specific minds, and it takes me back to when the Metroidvania sort of genre was getting onto PC in a big way because of passionate indies with games like Aquaria. And Aquaria holds a very special place in my heart for a variety of reasons, and this game really heavily reminds me of that one, for reasons I shall now go into. So, we're just going to jump into the gameplay from the start, and head into the area of the world I'm currently in, a beautiful and somewhat depressing zone that goes by the name of the City of Tears. So, first of all, I should probably explain what the heck is going on right now. I'm in Dartmouth, which is the sort of hub city. You can return here to rest, restore your health. There are various vendors and people that you can find and rescue that will come here. This is the medulla of the game, the Firelink Shrine, and you will see people returned here so that you can actually use their services. But of course, there are also many who will not return here even when you do rescue them or find them, and you will have to return to their location somewhere in the world as well. And that amazing thing that you just saw there was the game's fast travel system. Of course, many Metroidvanias have a method of teleportation or fast traversal through its world, and in this game's case, it is the stagways, in which this giant stag thing that is amazing will actually... You'll find his various stations throughout different parts of the world. You have to pay a specific toll, and then you can ring this bell once you've paid the toll to unlock the station, and he is now a sort of fast travelable area. There are several extremely unique aspects of this game mechanically. It is not your standard fare for Metroidvania, which is saying a lot, because honestly, even the standard fare is really quite good oftentimes. So one of the first things I should talk about is the resting system. Benches are sort of your save points, and there are a couple of other things you can rest at, but they all work in the same way. You sit on them to take a bit of a relax, but a bit of a chill, and you will restore all of your health, which are those masks that you see up there. And you will also mark down any areas of the map that you have currently explored that you hadn't had marked down before, which is something I'll explain in a minute. These also act as saves, of course, and whenever you die, you will return to your most recently rested at bench. There's also these. These are your charms, and these are very important. This is part of your sort of character build and a method of character progression, and it's an extremely interesting one. As you can see, there are a crap load of charms, like a lot of them. Almost 30 of them, in fact, and I don't have very many of them yet. I'm about 8 hours into this game, although some of that was alt-tabbed. And I've only got this many. I'm getting there. And you can equip as many charms as you have notches for those, basically a cost system for the charms, and I'll show you an interesting mechanic with that in a second. And there are a variety of interesting effects that they can have. The Lifeblood Heart, for instance, gives me, every time I rest, as you could see those 2 extra blue masks in my health gauge. Those are not permanent masks that I can restore with healing. They go away permanently after I lose them from taking damage, but I get them again every time I rest, and that is because of this charm. Also the Long Nail, which gives me more attack range, and the Compass, because again, the mapping system in this game is interesting, and it doesn't even show you where you are unless you have this equipped. There's also a lot of other things, like the Shell, which allows you to get a shield when you're focusing. This, which allows you to get more soul, which is very much like mana from hitting enemies. And this, which allows you to dash more often and even dash downwards, which seems very useful. You can get more notches from fighting bosses, finding them in levels in faraway places, or even buying them from some merchants. And here is an interesting thing. So, let's say I unequip that. I have 2 notches left. And let's see, do I have one that costs 3? I don't, do I? No, I don't. Okay, let's do this a different way then. We re-equip that, and unequip this. Now I have 1 notch remaining of cost. Everything I have except for this costs 2, so I can't use it, right? So if I try, overcharmed. This is what happens. You can actually, this is sort of a secret mechanic that the game doesn't tell you about, but I figured it out on accident. If you try and equip enough times, sometimes it takes a couple of tries, a charm that you don't have enough notches for, you will actually overcharm yourself, and it will give you the charm anyway. It will allow you to do it, even though you technically don't have enough capacity to use it, but you will take increased damage. So you have to have the trade-off between more power because of whatever you've equipped, and basically be sure of yourself that you're able to not get hit very often, because you will take increased damage to a pretty high extent depending on how many notches over you are, I believe is how it works. So yeah, I found that out by accident. I thought it was really cool. I love risk-reward kind of management in games like this, and that is a really neat sort of choice that you can make. If you feel confident enough in yourself, go for it. But the game is not very forgiving, by the way. And a not very forgiving aspect of that is the mapping system. So this is the map, and you may notice that when you actually go to the map while playing, your character literally holds a map in their hand, which means not only does the game not pause, but you actually have to go slowly. So if you fall or get hit, the map will go away, and you have to wait for a easier point to actually hold it. And the map is a very strange part of this game. This is the only Metroidvania I've ever played where you don't start with a map or just get a normally functioning map quite early on. This seems important somehow. Oh! Whoops. Was I supposed to do that? There's a lot of environmental interaction in the worlds, by the way. Some of it for the best, some of it not necessarily. And, you'll notice that when you first start, you don't have a map at all. And you only get maps by going into new areas and finding a cartographer who is, oh god, in just various different parts of each new zone that you go into. Sometimes he's actually quite difficult to find, but generally you can follow a stack of papers to find him. And then buying, with the currency that you get from killing monsters, this stuff called Geo, the map off of him. And the map is only good for that one area. There is no universal map, per se, in the game. Every area has its own, so that if you, for instance, bought a map for the Forgotten Crossroads and then you head into the Fungal Wastes, your map won't work there. It will just say that you don't have a map for this area. You will then have to find him again in that area and buy the map off of him there. But not only that, even when you do finally actually get this, you will find that it won't show you where you are. So that little adorable horned representation of me where I am is only there because I'm wearing the compass charm. If I wasn't wearing it, I would have to keep track of every room that I've traversed and use, educated guesswork, essentially, to ensure I knew which chamber I was in at any given time, which is a very interesting and very, I guess, refreshingly manual way to do it. Where in the world am I? And is not at all standard. And again, another more difficult part of it, there is a cartography shop in Dirtmouth up there. The map also doesn't mark important aspects of itself, past what the cartographer himself has marked for you when you first get his map, like a boss room, for instance, might be marked. And a couple of chambers might be marked. Most of the area itself will not be marked. Which means every time you, like right now, you see, if I just look here, I'm walking in an invisible room. There's nothing here on the map right now. And vendors on the map, save points like benches, stagways and things like that, none of those will actually mark themselves automatically when you walk into them, unless you buy the appropriate pins that allow that to happen. So essentially the mapping system in this game is a sort of difficult, process of making sure you acquire all of the necessary bits for it to function correctly. Which is interesting. I've never seen a Metroidvania use its map as an actual set of full-on game mechanics like that. I find that kind of refreshing. And you also have to get a quill, by the way. A quill for 120 Geo, my goodness, in order to have it mark new rooms for you, or else the map, as you can see here, will just have me floating in empty space. And the quill only works when you go to a bench. The flavor, of course, is that you're giving your character enough time to write down his recent travels. Ooh, what was that? Pretty. I believe that was a soul vessel shard. And I'm glad I went down here, that's for sure. And so basically the mapping system is its own set of mechanics entirely, which is, again, very different for a game of this type. So next time I go to a map, you'll see that room that I was in, or a bench, you'll see that room that I was in right there actually appear on this map, instead of being an empty void. So, what else kind of mechanically is different about this game? Well, first of all, the movement is great. It feels a lot like Super Meat Boy, I would say. It's got a lot of weight to it and a lot of momentum to your character, but it doesn't feel clunky at all. You feel very, very in control of your speed and your jumps. It's got that Super Meat Boy style jump where the longer you hold the button, the higher you jump, but the second you let go of it, you start to fall. And once you get used to the weight implied by that kind of jumping mechanic, you get really good control, a really good feel of the control of how high you can jump at any given time and how far you can jump at any given time, which is really good for a Metroidvania, which tends to have a lot of platforming and jumping and stuff like that, which this most definitely does. Get my health back. So as you can see there, it said map updated, and now if I go back to my map, go back to the Forgotten Crossroads map, now that little room over there to the left, above the lift there, is actually in. As you can see, by the way, this game world is huge and varied. There's a lot here, and this isn't even the only places I've been to. There are places I don't have the maps for yet that I've also been to. Like the Fog Canyon, don't go there, and some other interesting things. But right now I'm exploring the City of Tears. So, what about the combat? Well, the combat is also helped out a lot by the very weighty and satisfying feeling movement. Because, of course, if you can get this nice, satisfying movement, then actually fighting a variety of enemies is going to feel good as well. And it does. Generally, Metroidvania combat is acceptable, and usually not great. Nothing is fantastic about it. It's just good enough. But in this case, it is a unique combination of very interesting enemy designs, like very good enemy variety, which changes a lot depending on the areas you're in. I just got like destroyed there. And a good suite of movement mechanics, because you of course have your jumps, your dashes, your double jumps, and things like that you'll be able to obtain depending on what all you get, because it is a Metroidvania after all, so you'll get all kinds of different movement-based abilities. All of those are viable in combat, and very useful in combat. A lot like something like Guacamelee, for instance. Another simple key. Good. And you have your nail, which is what your sort of sword-like implement here is called. It's called a nail for some reason. And it has a sort of small variety of attacks. Your basic attacks, you have an upward attack, a downward attack, and its attacks can be enhanced in various aspects by the pins, the various relics that you can equip. And there are even combinations, I found out, of equipable relics, where if you equip a certain specific set of them at once, you'll actually gain an effect that is greater than the sum of their individual parts, which is interesting. I don't currently have any examples of that, but it is something that you can do. I think I heard about one that creates like a poison fog when you focus. I don't know anything about it, though. I've seen 2 of these now, and I'm wondering what they are. That's a very common Metroidvania problem, isn't it? You come across a shiny thing that you don't know what the heck it is. You know you can interact with it at some point in some way, but you don't have whatever it is that allows you to do that yet. Yeah. It's a cog tree dreamcatcher thing. I want it, whatever it is. I'm just checking all these rooms to see what's here before heading back down to that bench down there. By the way, these spiked, sort of vaulted ceilings of this Gothic architecture here in the City of Tears will in fact damage you if you hit it. So don't. It'd be nice if I could stand on those, that'd be kind of cool. Oh god! So what else works in the combat? Well, as well as your nail, you have and movement abilities. You have your focus ability, which allows you to heal yourself. I'm not sure if you get other focus abilities or not, but the main one, at least, is it allows you to heal yourself, like this. It consumes soul, which is that, of course, white mask-like meter over there to the left, which you gain from hitting enemies. You don't have to kill them to gain soul, which is an important part, by the way. You just have to hit them, which is very good in boss fights, by the way. And you can also expend soul if you tap the button instead of holding it to fire spells. There are a variety of spells, and the one I currently have shoots what's essentially like a white fireball. It's very powerful. It's actually impressively powerful, and how nice it feels. For like a first spell that you would get in a game like this, you would expect it to feel fairly anemic and throwaway, but it does not. It feels extremely powerful, and it is. It will just destroy whatever it hits, basically. It can one-shot a lot of the enemies in the game, the earlier enemies, and the ones that it doesn't one-shot, it will leave very heavily damaged. That's the cartographer, by the way. Hello. I don't think he has anything else to say. Yeah. You meet a very large variety of very interesting characters, quite the cast in this game. I'm checking for secret walls. Yeah. And, I'm gonna go over here now, I guess. And in addition to all of the other things that you can do, sometimes, getting hit like an idiot, sometimes just running is not necessarily a bad strategy. Although Geo, the money that you obtain from killing things, is important. Yeah, sometimes running away is just as good. Alright, I guess I'm gonna go this way for now. I haven't been this way yet. That seems dangerous. You know, there's also a... Oh, what the heck, let's go. So far, I found a very interesting cast of characters, and also a large number of boss fights. From normal bosses to mini-bosses, to the occasional kind of, like, fake-out boss fight, and stuff like that, which is fairly interesting. This kind of looks like a boss room, almost, which worries me. And, I was actually really surprised by just the sheer number and variety of bosses I came across. If you explore in this game, I would just flat out say that exploration is this game's like strongest point. Besides, by the way, that it's, oh my god, that its art style is fantastic. I don't really think that needs to be like qualified, but the art style that this game carries with it is incredible. It's very dark fantasy, very gothic art style, but also has a lot of kind of whimsy to it. It's very Tim Burton-esque, I would say. And it pulls that off, they home in very well. Well, I healed myself and then got hit in the process. I was not expecting this at all. This is like a mini-boss fight. As I was saying, you find a lot of little boss fights and mini-bosses and things around the place that aren't necessary, perhaps? This one maybe, I'm not sure. But you also find a lot of unnecessary ones that you can just do to get special rewards, like a charm notch, or a charm itself, or a mask fragment, which is for extra health. It's like a heart container, or a piece of heart. I'm gonna go save. Or you may even find something along the lines of an NPC that's trapped by the mini-boss or boss, or hidden behind them in some way. Like there's a charm merchant that you have to fight a small boss for, or a sort of swordsman that you have to free, that he'll appear in various later points. I'm not sure about his importance yet, or what he does after the fact. I just knew that I freed him from a flying boss, killed a boss, and he now appears in various places, and I talk to him all the time. Oh, it appears again! That's not good. I don't have to fight it twice, though, because the gate didn't appear again. Whee! Soul Sanctum. Sounds like a band. But the yeah, once again, the art style, the entire aesthetic of the game, aesthetic of course includes music, is just great. The soundtrack to the game is sold separately, like you can actually buy it, is what I'm trying to say, and I would recommend doing so because it's great. It carries this very kind of somber tone a lot of the times, but is also often very very, I guess, whimsical in certain areas, which I think matches the tone of the game. It can be very dismal and almost kind of depressing. I mean, you hear this music, it's like just a steel gray area with like this sort of organ and things like that in the background that's really not particularly, you know, giving me the good feelies, but at the same time it's really, what is that? It's really impressively grand, I guess, and there's still a certain amount of like whimsical nature to it, which again is like a Tim Burton staple, so that's why I say that this reminds me of his work so much. The top of the elevator is spiked and will kill you. Alright, so I can't go that way. Let's see what's up this way. It has all the staples that you would, oh my god, that you would expect of a, I jumped right into that, of a proper Metroidvania. Good combat, fantastic exploration, a very large and interesting world, and a lot of bosses to fight and stuff to find, and things to improve yourself with over the course of the game, and, you know, get new abilities and ways to move around the world and stuff like that. But it also has so much more than all of that. And I think that's probably what helps to set it apart, because that's what Aquaria had as well, and that's where I'm going to come back to the, oh god, the comparison I was making earlier to Aquaria. Aquaria had an amazing soundtrack, like an enthralling world. It had a beautiful, often, and kind of sad, but beautifully sad story with kind of a bleak and almost oppressive overarching theme, and yet it didn't feel quite as heavy as something like, you know, a World of Dark Souls or something like that. And this, the story seems very interesting, by the way. This is very much like that. It carries a lot of the same themes as something like Aquaria did. And I approve. I approve a lot. It does pretty much everything I wanted it to do, and a lot that I didn't know that it would. So yeah, I approve very heavily of Hollow Knight. It's probably one of the best, it is one of the best Metroidvanias I've ever played, and if it isn't just flat out the best that I have played, then its only competition is probably not very large. Oh god! Okay. Also bosses. Can I have enough time to... Nope, okay, good. Also, it has a death mechanic that is very unforgiving, I should point out. If you die, you leave a shade of yourself in place. Crap, which I'm about to do. And the shade will chill wherever you were. Nope, dead. Like this. Around wherever you were. It's adorable. And the music changes to an incredibly creepy, almost nursery rhyme-esque tone with like bells and things when you get close to where your shade is. And as you can see, you lose all of your money when you die. Yes, I know, the death system may seem a bit familiar to you. And you have to get back to your shade and kill it in order to get all of your crap back. And now the only thing you technically lose is your money, but you... damn it, I'm trying to keep as many of those blue masks as I can. But you will notice that you also lose a chunk of your soul vessel, that sort of mana bar. You can see that it's shattered. What's over there? And that means that I can only fill it up about 2/3 of the way until I get my shade back. Which means I can only heal myself for a maximum of 2 masks by focusing, or I can cast a maximum of 2 spells with my current level of, you know, how much I can actually hold. Oh, actually, it looks like was the shade down there? I don't know. I don't want to lose all that money, but it looks like on the map that it actually is lower. I just want to find it. Is it deliberately coded not to stay in the boss chamber? I don't know. Oh my god. This was a mistake. I'm pretty sure it's in there. Okay, this is very bad. I am a little bit screwed, I believe. But yeah. The game is actually very unforgiving. You don't start with all that much health, and you can die quite easily. And dying twice in a row without getting your shade back will lose you everything. Okay, I got it. Although I probably am just going to die again very shortly. Ooh, that is a far dash. Man. Yeah, this is going to be a hard boss I'm going to be stuck on for a while. But anyway, I'm going to keep trying at this. You should go buy Hollow Knight. I should make note that the world is absolutely huge and that the exploration that you can do is varied enough to where a lot of the areas are so open that people can take a lot of different paths and end up coming to the same areas at different times than each other, fighting different bosses in different orders and getting different key items for different movement abilities in different orders, and actually end up at different points in the game kind of at the same time. It's interesting. The world is open enough to allow that, and you can do a lot of exploration on your own. And I would heavily recommend doing so. Also, the game has multiple endings. And I don't really know much about them because I don't want to spoil myself and I haven't beat the game yet. I just know that it has multiple endings, which is really cool. Because of how large the world is, I imagine it has something to do with that and how much of it you explore. This place is really difficult. And like what bosses maybe you defeat and at which point you end up at which places and things like that. Maybe that has something to do with the ending. A bit like Symphony of the Night. How that allowed you to get the better ending by killing a specific boss a certain way that allowed you to access different parts of the world and things like that. So yeah, I just want to keep exploring. I just want to keep going, and I will. Because this is an absolutely enthralling game. It is. There's no such thing as a perfect game. But as far as executing the Metroidvania sort of formula, as close to perfect as possible with its own very unique and very welcome and interesting interpretations, Hollow Knight does that. And did I mention that it's only $15, by the way? That's not a sale price or anything, that's just the price. It's a $15 experience. And the experience you'll have is hopefully quite good. That's a lot of content, a lot of value for only $15. Yeah, 15 geos. So go and pick it up, and I'll link you, of course, in the description below so you can check it out. And I couldn't recommend it enough. Man. Also, this boss is going to be just destroying me until I figure it all out. Like when to heal. And until then, seems like that might. Oh yeah, wall jumping. That's important, isn't it? And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Oh god, I'll see you then. Ah, shoot! I will get this.